Well, hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? You know the drill. Let me know that you can hear me okay, and can I get a sound check from you?
Testing, testing.
Just want to make sure, because I only have a one microphone setup, which is right here that you can't see. I can actually bring it into the view of the camera if you want. But I definitely want to make sure that because Demetrius is a little bit further away from the microphone, can he be heard okay?
I'll make a point of speaking a little clearly. If I forget, give me a gentle reminder.
All right, so I guess everything's going to be okay then. All right, cool. There we go. Let's see here. Poolside chat with Todd. I did see your comments. I will answer you here shortly. Poolside chat with Todd. If you remember the review that me, you, and Nate did, this was a while ago.
Yeah, it's not going to stand out just without looking it back up. But did we see some of his play?
We got to watch some of his play, and we did a review of his stuff, and that inspired him to now make a YouTube channel. And so he's been posting videos of his matches and doing his own review commentary, kind of like what I do with my stuff here.
Very cool.
So it's really cool to see you here in the chat. Okay, so enough of that. Like I said, the reason why we are here is because, unfortunately, both of us have been eliminated from the 2024 Texas 9-Ball Open. And since Demetrius is here visiting from Minnesota, he is going back later tonight. So I wanted to try to have this opportunity to have him talk about his experience here, first time at the Texas Open. And also to try to give a comparison to what it's like to Turning Stone, because he does go to Turning Stone every year. It just happens to be not this one. So before we do that, everybody also might want to know how my experience was, because I do try to play in this every year. And this one was just pretty much one and the same. I won my first match against Jaden Dupree. That was a bit of a nerve-wracking match for me, since it was Dupree trick shots versus Lil Chris. And I already made a post about it on my Facebook page, to where it was a hard battle, to where I don't believe both of us were playing our top game. And in the end of it, I think I would probably estimate that Jaden made just a couple of more mistakes than me, but I also got a couple of more rolls than him that basically allowed it to tip it to my favor, and that's just my opinion. And I was able to win 9-7. I went on next to play a player who I think is a little new to the area, but his Fargo is like 750 or 760. And I fought hard against that one. Demetrius can testify to that. But I wasn't able to take it down. I think I lost 9-5. But that at least promoted me to the next day. And then my next opponent was, I think it was below 600 Fargo, and I managed to beat him 9-4. And then I had to face Jonathan Pinniger, who I'm very familiar with who that gentleman is. I don't would you happen to know what his Fargo is off the top of your head? I know it's got to be in the high 700s.
770, 769, 768, something like 771, right around there, I think.
Yeah, and so I already knew that match was going to be hard enough for me, and I was only able to get 3 racks on him, as he pretty much destroyed me 9-3. And I was pretty much out after that. Demetrius, on the other hand, had a completely different experience. I'm going to let him have the floor here in just a minute. And so, yeah, it was 4 rounds total. Wasn't enough to make the money. I have yet to get to the final 32 in this event, but we'll just have to chalk it up for next year. So I think, at least with that, Demetrius, before you go into your experience, there might be some new viewers here in the chat. Let everybody know who you are first.
Yeah, and I want to shout out to Christian, a gentleman I've known and play with occasionally from the Metro. So thanks for tuning in. He also sent me a congratulations after one of my matches. So thank you. And so what do I who am I? I'm Demetrius. I'm a pool coach from Minneapolis. So can you put my URL in the chat or something?
I certainly can.
Thank you. www.mnpoolbootcamp.com. I do non-traditional lessons, so I don't do these little 1-2 hour things where I give a couple pointers. I do like a 3-day intensive one-on-one experience for people that want to just come in, shut the door behind them, and go all in to train. My general thinking is people go to tournaments. This was a weekend tournament. We were playing for, a couple days. People go to tournaments all the time for 2-3 days. And they do this month after month, year after year. And I'm like, if you're going to be playing 30, 40, 50 tournaments over the next 3 to 5 years, why not take one of those weekends, just one, and come train up and get some, coaching. I just said in a recent podcast that pool is like a trade. You have to learn it. And, you watching little Chris videos is a great start. Somebody that's learning a trade, they're better off studying than not studying. But if you can have a mentor that's working with you hands-on and showing you how to do things and how to do it, it's just a different level. So for that reason, what I do is I invite people to come to my house, spend 3 days with me. We look at your pool game, exactly what your strengths are, what your understandings are, what your techniques are, figure out how that's getting you as far as you've gotten, and then figure out either which pieces are missing or which pieces maybe not smoothed out or connected the right way, identify them, and then make a plan to kind of go and work on those and massage those and then reassemble them. And then we don't just talk about it or give you a pointer and wish you well. Like, we actually go ahead and do that together for 3 days so that you leave a different player and also have a clear road of some things you can keep doing to keep going the way you want to go. So I do it. It's I really enjoy it. And anybody that's serious about pool that wants to get to the next level, check me out.
And I will highlight that when Demetrius said leave a different pool player, I can personally testify to that, because it was 4 years ago when we first hooked up, and I went through his bootcamp training, and I'm a completely different pool player because of it. I think when we first met, I was a 6'14" or a 6'15", and then over the course of 4 years of applying the things that he's taught me, and then of course still learning new things on top of that, I last checked in at a 650 Fargo,
which is huge. I something that's been on my mind a lot. When somebody goes from 614 to 651 on a distance, you can zoom back and be like, well, it's not 700, it's not 800. Like, that's still, it's 35 points. But the thing you have to realize is that a 100-point Fargo gap, if somebody's a 700 versus a 600, the 700 rated player is supposed to win 2-1 on the game score, which in a way means they're twice as good. So that almost means every 100 points is like 100%. So if somebody goes from 614 to 651, that's like 37% better. Which, when Chris is a 614 player, think about this. He's breaking and running racks and 9-ball and running balls and straight pool, and he's doing all these things. He already knew how to play. So to take a good player and have them get 37% better in 3-4 years, that's a monumental improvement. Even if people, 34 points is so, 37 points is so easy to say. It's just a huge growth. And this is a hard game and a long journey. And so, of course, I give Chris all the credit for the progress he's made. And he's generous to give me some credit with, some direction that's helped. So, yeah. I also got a question. Is there a minimum Fargo level? Yes. I actually got an email yesterday, and so with the same question. So I know it's an important question I should answer. There's not a hard minimum. I used to say about 500, but what I've learned is that there's a difference between a 450 Fargo who has never studied pool, never trained or read any books, who just started playing in a bar 25 years ago, picked a few things up over the years and hasn't really grown for 20 years and doesn't really know much about the game and just plays a lot. There's a difference between that 450 and somebody who started playing and got the bug 3 years ago and started really working and studying and watching videos and training and practicing and learning everything they can learn, and it's been getting better and better and better in leaps and bounds. That 450 I could work with. The first 450, it would be a little tough. So the other thing I'd say is I am happy. And so what I told the gentleman I emailed back as well is if somebody's like on the cusp where they feel like, hey, it might be premature to do a boot camp, I actually, if somebody's planning on scheduling with me, I've got no problem watching a video of how they play and then giving them a little bit of coaching to like help smooth and start that process to where maybe over 3 to 6 months, they can put some stuff together and develop some things in their game to where 6 months from now we boot camp. And then I give them some stuff to help them grow so that they become the player that's ready to train and kind of hit the ground running when they get here. So, but if you have any questions, let's just talk on the phone and we can figure it out real quick.
Here's another one before we go into your recap of the text open. This is from Poolside Chat with Todd. He primarily plays on bar box, so is that going to make training awkward?
No, I think that it doesn't. If we were competing, that would be different. But it's all about developing and training. So to me, it's all the same. Your performance is not going to look as good on a 9-foot, especially when you're fatigued, your head's full of new ideas, you're struggling, you're frustrated with different techniques you're working on, and it's not always easy. I mean, it's in fact, it's very hard. 3 days is very hard to work on stuff. And there's times when it gets very emotionally challenging. And we take breaks and regroup and switch to different things and thrash and, find ways to re-energize. But it's tough. And so if you look at your performance and start being critical of yourself, like I should be doing better, well, then, yeah, that could be tough. But if you just understand it, this is training. And it's almost like when I practice, I sometimes use pocket tighteners. And if I put those pocket tighteners in and expected myself to play the same, well, then I'd be very frustrated. But if I just understand this is practice, these are pocket tighteners, it's going to make it a little tough. It's not going to look the same, but I'm doing this to improve. Because then when I take the pocket tighteners out, it's going to be better. So when you come here, it's going to be on a 9-foot table. You're going to be under the scrutiny of a high-level player who's a professional coach that's going to be watching you. It's going to create pressure. You're going to be trying new things. You're going to be fatigued or tired at times, and it's not going to always look pretty. So as long as you can accept that, then the rest is all. The training will not be impaired.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
So everybody, keep the questions coming in. We do want to have a little bit of an interaction. We don't plan on this being a very long live stream, but as Demetrius is doing his recap of the Texas Open, like I said, and then give some comparisons to it to Turning Stone, if you would. And as I'm watching the chat, if I start seeing any questions, I'll just start queuing them up. And then when we're pretty much ready to wrap things up, we'll do all the Q&A part, and then we'll pretty much end the stream from there. So keep the questions coming in. And Demetrius, tell us how you feel about the Texas 9-Ball Open.
Yeah, so first of all, my results, I tied for 25th through 32nd, it's a 128-player field. Tournaments typically pay out the top 25%, so I finished first round in the money. So I did make the money, and so that's where I finished. How I got there, and then how I feel about it. How I got there, I had 5. How many matches did I play? I played 6 matches. I won 1, lost 1, won 3, lost 1, and so no, 1, 2, lost 1. I think I played 1, lost 1, 1, 2.
I thought it was 3.
3. Yep, 1, 3, and then lost 1. Okay, so I my first match was against a tough local player, very tough local player, and yeah, it was a real tester first round. Nerves, and plus he just played a really good set. Raised to 9. I was actually down 8-6, and I came back. And funny enough, the 9-ball shot I had on the Hill was the same 9-ball. I had a Hill 9-ball in a tournament earlier this year that I missed on the Hill, and I just through coincidence, you can't make it up. Hill, here I am again, and I had the same 9-ball shot, and I just was laughing. I'm like, of course, just how do you ha ha ha? But I made this one, and I got it, yay. So that one was tough. And then my second match, I played Alex Calderon, originally from Venezuela, now lives in Houston. He's higher ranked than me. He's a little stronger, but not insurmountable. We played. It was a hard set. I think he got me down 8-4, but I think I won a game or 2 in the beginning. Then he took the lead, and it wasn't as lopsided as it sounds. He had me down 8-4, and then I won 3 in a row to get 8-7. And then he kicked and slopped at a ball and made a great run out. To give him credit, he made a great run out. But I thought it was going. I thought I was taking it, man. I thought I was sneaking back on that guy. Anyway, so he beat me. So then I'm on the loser side, and I think I win my first match. Yeah, yesterday morning I win my first match. And then I played, I played Shane Wolford, who's one of our top U.S. players that plays sometimes on the Mosconi Cup. What's that? Or do you laugh at?
No, just that sometimes plays on the Mosconi Cup.
Well, I don't know. I mean, is he always? I can't.
No, I think he played in last year in London, and I do not know if he's currently in contention.
There you go. That's all I meant. It's just it's not like it's okay. He's a U.S. player. There's a very strong U.S. player, and actually we played once before. We played at Derby City a couple of years ago, and I think it was the 9th or 10th round. It was pretty deep in the Derby. I just beat D. Atkins hill to get this round, and I was playing, and I had to play Wolford in a race to 9. And I'll tell you, I felt like I played the best set of my tournament against Wolford, and I think I had him 6-3, and then he came back and beat me, and he played really strong, like really strong on me at Derby. So I was remembering that. I'm like, well, I got to play him again, and I don't know, I can do much better. And then on top of that, here's what the wrinkle is. They called me on the stream table, which means that, everybody watching, anybody that bought the pay-per-view for the tournament ended up watching my match with Shane. And so then that just is like, of course, you're on the stream and you're thinking about the people watching and, whatever. But it turns out I ended up winning. And I didn't feel really that proud of my performance. But, I was able to put enough I was able to challenge him with enough problems that he struggled, and then I was able to take advantage when it really mattered. So not thrilled. I'm not going to go watch that video back and be like, yeah, look at me. I'm like, yeah, it was a little patchy, but sometimes pool's a street fight, and you got to just figure out how to get it done in the moment. And so I actually said if I'd lost that match playing like that, I would have been a little disappointed. But, winning takes the sting out of a little bit of a couple mistakes. But anyway, but that's a cool win. It's cool to beat a strong player, and it's always good to win a good set or win a tough set. And then I ended up winning my next match as well, and got in the money. And then I lost one last night where I really I just succumbed to pressure. There's no other way to say it. I was up 4-2, and I made a really good 8-ball. I made a good out, came with a great 8-ball shot, got really good on the 9. And sometimes, guys, after you make a really clutch shot, the next shot, you can kind of like lose focus because you just feel like you've already won. And I lost focus, and I just wasn't in the moment, and I missed this 9-ball. That was really a routine 9-ball. And that's a huge deal, because when you're playing a set of pool, that 3-game lead is a big lead. When you're up 2 games and running out, if you get that 3-game lead, that's really big. But when you fumble, now it's a 1-game lead, and you just made a mistake and the other guy's breaking. That's as close to even as you can be with a 1-game difference. So it goes from being a real strong lead with a lot of momentum to basically giving away the whole lead and making it a coin flip set. And I fumbled on that 9, and then I tried to walk it off, but things started snowballing, and he didn't play brilliantly, but he was ready to take it. And so he took it and eliminated me. And it was a hard way to go. And, it never feels good. So in the end, I think what the good things were is that I won a tough hill
match my first round, and I got it done in the clutch. I held up on the stream and got it done against Wolford and the cashed, and had a good scalp and had some good, all things, all things being said, I can't feel terrible about the performance, but I didn't love how I was playing, but that's pool. And so I think one thing I told Chris last night, I think it's important to share, is I almost never always love how I'm playing. It's like there's been like every once in a while I'll have a tournament or two where I'm just like really in groove and like, yeah, look at that. But like most of the time, it's never as good as I want it to be, right? And so you can't really take that too hard. That's just like most tournaments you end up losing at some point, and then you just have to lick your wounds and say, okay, direction and motivation. What can I learn from this? Can it motivate me to keep working? And yeah, it always feels terrible when it doesn't work. And so you just have to, that's just that comes with the territory of being a pool player.
All right, cool. How do you think this would compare to Turning Stone as far as the competition and the level of pressure that a player might be able to experience?
I think it's very similar in terms of competition and pressure. I think that I've actually been on the stream at Turning Stone a time or 3 as well. Had a good scalp. I ended up beating John Mora hill on a stream at Turning Stone one time. So that was I was just thinking, like, by experience, it's like very similar toughness. The top players at Turning Stone are typically like Jason Shaw, Mika Immonen, and then a couple of Euro guys. Sometimes Federer plays that tournament. And then you've got like another dozen guys that are kind of like 750 to 770. Like a lot of times you'll see Billy Thorpe out there. You might see, some guys from Canada, like, anyway. So Eric Orlifson and a bunch of guys that are all like 760, 770. So you got like maybe like 800 Fargos, and then like a bunch of 750 to 800 guys. And then like another dozen guys that play like around my speed, like between 7 and 750. And so it's a very similar. I think that was very similar to what we saw here. I mean, we had a couple 800s. We had like Lee Van Corteza, Shane, a couple other guys, and then you had a handful of guys that were like 770 plus, and then you had a bunch of guys that were like 720 plus, right? Like a couple dozen. So I'd say it's pretty similar difficulty.
Okay.
The differences that stood out to me, you were talking, you wanted to kind of compare the Texas Open to the Turning Stone. So the Turning Stone tournament, and I usually go there, I just didn't get my entry in time, so I came here instead. The difference is that the Turning Stone is at a convention center, whereas the Texas Open is at a pool hall. Shout out to Skinny Bob's. Awesome pool hall, by the way. Awesome pool hall. So in general, the Turning Stone runs like most pro events run, where you have the brackets are drawn and every match has a scheduled time. And you can count. If you play at noon and it says your next match is at 7, you can just leave and come back at 7. And you know that not only will you not play until 7, but you also know it'll start at 7, because those tournaments run like a clock. Very much, you have your little hotel room. You come in, you have your little pitchers of water, and everything's like professionals, like set up. You got to spend lots of bleachers for people to watch and stuff. It's very much like a pro tournament. Pool room tournaments in general, not the Texas Open, but in general, pool room tournaments are quite a bit different. They usually have very much crowds because you don't have enough room for everybody that's in a pool room tournament. So there's, never any place to stand or sit. You can barely get to the bathroom. And then usually you have matches that don't run on time. And so you never know when you're going to play. And you're just hanging around the pool room hour after hour, wondering if they're ever going to call your match. And then you end up playing till like 4 or 5 in the morning. And so generally pool room tournaments are crowds, long wait times, no room, and then sleep deprivation. That's usually how pool room tournaments work. This Skinny Bob's and Ray Hansen was the gentleman that ran it, correct? He was
at least the streamer.
The streamer. I'm sorry. Okay. So in any case, Skinny Bob's this Texas Open is a phenomenal. It is the best pool room run tournament I've ever been to. And what I mean by that is the signups. I got my sign up in, I got registered, I showed up, everything was really clear. Players meeting in Calcutta started when it said it would. They never called matches after 10 or 11 p.m. for me. I don't know. Maybe somebody else had to play till 1. I don't know. I'm just telling you my experience. Like I didn't have to play until wee hours of the morning. And also my matches went down when they were supposed to. Like pretty close. There's a couple times when like I was supposed to play at 2 and maybe I didn't kick off till 2:40 or something. But like 40-minute delay compared to a 5-hour delay, like a lot of tournaments, it felt really, really good. So it had the pool room feel, but it was like really run professionally. So very well run, and it was a little crowded because you did have a lot of players in there, so seating was a little tough. But you didn't have to hang out there for 8 hours wondering if you're going to be played. So I had time in between matches because they ran it so well. I could actually come back to your place and take a nap, and that's a huge thing to be able to do. So I was blown away by how well it ran. And then the only other thing I would say as far as feel goes, they have a huge Calcutta here. So Turning Stone, they don't have a Calcutta, but here they have a Calcutta. And for anyone watching that doesn't know, it's basically a gambling side pot where players can bet on who's going to win the tournament. That's the simplest way to say it. And it gets pretty big here in Texas. And so that changes the feel of the tournament, because a lot of pro tournaments are like just really like tournament-y. And this gets a little bit like it's a tournament, but it also has that vibe of being a little bit like, you get a lot of the gamblers showing up. So at the Turning Stone, you get a lot of like Eurobots that are like the professional athlete players. But here you get a lot of like the Street Fighter players, like Josh Roberts and Tony Chohan and all these guys, Danny Smith and all these guys that are like, they're not trying to be professional tournament players, but they like to mix it up. And you get a lot of guys like that in this field, and it just changes the field. So those are my thoughts. What do you think? Yeah.
That's good then. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into your experience to kind of just illustrate the ups and downs of pool. So when you played your match against Shane Wolford, your Fargo is like a 720-ish or something. And what is Shane, about a 750 or
I think it's like 766
760
or something.
Or something?
Yeah, I think he's Pretty good.
Right. So we got that dynamic to where there's about a 40 point difference between the two. You fought hard and you managed to come out with the win pretty good. And then your next match, you got a good win. And then the match that took you out, I believe your opponent was a 680, 690. And that was the one that ended you. So can you maybe talk about the dynamics between how your match went up against the 750 versus how it went against the 690 or 680?
Yeah, I guess so. We did a video that talked about the competitor cycle. Anybody that hasn't seen it, check it out on Little Chris's channel. Just search Little Chris or Little Chris competitor cycle, and I talk a little bit about. So there is some pressure that comes with being a slight favorite, and there's also pressure that there's also of course there's pressure from being an underdog. So you can go into a match, and when you're the underdog, you have to deal with intimidation. But when you're the favorite, you have to deal with expectation. Like, oh, I'm supposed to win. I should win. This is my chance. And if I fumble this, and it would be horrible to lose this set because I'm supposed to win. And those types of thoughts and feelings. So both the underdog and the favorite can have some pressure on them. And when you're the underdog in your next match, like I was the underdog to Shane Wolford, you have to remember that they feel the pressure too. And I know that. And so coming into the match with Shane, I was definitely able to play and do things in such a way to keep some heat on him and make him feel, because when a better player is losing to a weaker player, it can feel like, oh man, this is a nightmare and this is horrible and I can't believe all the rolls he's getting and it shouldn't be going this way. And I'm not saying Shane believes that. Like, I know Shane's an experienced tournament player. He understands that this has happened a million times to him. But just because it's happened before doesn't mean that it can't happen now, and he could feel a little up against it. So I just wanted to keep doing things. I just wanted to play good enough and put enough pressure on him to make his worst nightmares kind of come true on the table a little bit, and kind of help him feel that way. Meanwhile, when I played my later opponent that ended up beating me, it wasn't just that it wasn't pressure of expectation. I actually felt like it was a really hard match, and I knew going in, I felt like I was up against it. I didn't feel that confident coming into that match. But I think also this player does one or two things really well that I've been struggling with lately. And so because I've been struggling in an area where this guy happens to be pretty strong, it's a little bit like this isn't the case, but let me just use an example. Suppose somebody was really bad shooting elevated shots. Let's say they shot really, whatever they had to elevate over a ball or elevate off a rail, they just really struggled. And then they played a guy who was practicing and warming up and just shooting in a bunch of elevated shots like no problem. Well, that can kind of rattle you to where you're like, man, this guy is like, that's how it should look. And this guy's got skills I don't have. And that's so impressive. And I don't know, man, can I beat a guy? He's like, it's like that. And it has this edge on me. And do I even deserve it? And can I win this match? And it can challenge your belief a little bit. And so it was tough. And it's a bummer, it's a bummer, but it's also, that's pool. There's just no way to learn the game without getting some, you're going to not only miss a lot of balls, but you're going to make so many mistakes and go down so many wrong roads. You need those losses to show you how to adjust. Pool's not some road where you steer towards a good pool game, build it, and then win all the time. Pool's a game where you keep making wrong turns and the game keeps nudging you back to go a different direction, whether it's physically or in your mind. And so it's never feels, it's like every time you get out of line, the game slaps you and says, no, this way. And then it slaps you, no, this way. And it never feels good to get that slap on the wrist. But if you've been listening on autopilot, now's the time to pay attention. Here's the thing you have to really understand. Those losses feel devastating, but they're only a slap on the wrist. They're just a gentle nudge to change. It's people, I say on a pain scale of 1 to 10, the slap on the wrist of a loss it's like a 2. But people can make it into a 9 by believing all the despairing and discouraging thoughts that they start thinking. So just because you think a thought doesn't mean that thought is true. So what happens is when you lose, you say, okay, I made these mistakes and I did these things not to the level I want. Those are objective observations. This is so important, guys. Those are detached observations. Oops, I did this wrong. I made a couple mistakes. I'm not as good in this area as I would like to be. See that? Those are calm, objective statements. I would like to be better at A and B and C. I made these mistakes. But then the thoughts that go with it are like, man, I'm horrible. This is the worst ever. I never win. I've been working on this for years. I'll never get it right. Whenever it comes up where I really want to win, these things always bring me down, and that's why I never get it done, and it's just helpless, and no matter how hard I work, it doesn't come together for me, and what's wrong with me? Those are not detached observations. Those are like turbulent, negative emotions and thoughts that are jumping around. And what happens is, guys, and I'm telling you, so important. If you believe those thoughts, I like to say this, the emotions you feel after a loss are like a 2 on the pain scale. But when you start to believe those thoughts about yourself, then they become a 9. You are the one that turns those thoughts from a 2 turns that pain from a 2 to a 9. So when I lost last night and missed that 9 and dogged it off and then kind of blew an opportunity to actually make a pretty good finish and see what could have happened, it hurt. And my brain started thinking all these horrible thoughts. And what I did is I stepped back and I sort them into 2 piles. The detached observations and then everything else. And what I do is I take the detached observations that might help me motivate myself and give me direction on what to work on. I take those and I say, great, I will use those. And then everything else, I sweep it away and say, whatever, I don't care. And there's more I could say on that. I teach mental game, by the way, guys. If you go to my URL, I'm running a mental game class. I need 1 or 2 more guys for this last session. But anyway, I teach mental game. I'm a big believer in it. And right now, that's just a little tidbit. It's being able to sort between useful, detached observations and emotional judgments. And you have to take the useful observations and sweep away the emotional judgments. And everybody will sit there and defend it and be like, well, if you don't notice your mistakes, you're not going to fix them. Say, yeah. I'm all about observing. But there's a difference between that observation and the judgment and global despairing thoughts that go with. That's the part. And you're still going to think those thoughts. And it's going to feel a little bad. It's going to feel like a 2. But then you just smile and say, yeah, whatever. I don't have to believe them. I don't choose to believe those thoughts.
Yeah. So like last night, Demetrius and I had a conversation because he wanted to know how I felt about my experience. And I had expressed that I was actually kind of disappointed in my performance. Not that I only went 4 rounds, because I still could have gone 4 rounds and would be satisfied with my performance. And my answer that I gave him really dived around the 2 matches that I won, because the 2 matches that I lost, could I have done better? Well, the answer is going to be yes. And even with the 2 matches that I won, could I have won those matches better? The answer could be yes. But I was content with the way that I played in the matches that I lost, losing 9-5 to the 760. I believe his name was Miguel, and then losing 9-3 against Jonathan Pinniger, which I think in that match I probably could have grabbed another rack or 2 and maybe have made that one also 9-5. But I can take that idea and apply it to my other match where, yeah, I probably could have still lost 9-7. So that's why I just dismissed those. When I look at the matches that I won and what I had said to Demetrius as far as why I was disappointed, what I looked at it was, I wish I would have played 1 ball better and still won. That was where my disappointment was. And sometimes I look at it, or I can look at it as, yeah, I won, but I didn't win because I won. I won because they lost, if that makes sense. And generally speaking for myself, I'm always going to be happy to walk away with a W, but I want to make sure that it's just a W that I really got. I grinded hard for it and then just got it. And one could still argue that, well, you still did grind hard and got the win. That's why you're still walking away with the win. But it's one of those, would you rather win your match because the majority of the racks you ran out from the 2 ball or the 3 ball or maybe even the 4 ball? Or would you be happy with your win where the majority of the racks that you won were from the 8 ball? Does that make sense?
I always just think about it very simply. I say, sometimes I win like an eagle. Other times I win like a vulture. And it's like, I try to be the eagle, But sometimes vultures got a vulture. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, so I tried to, clearly when I look at the matches that I lost, I try to figure out, well, what could I have done better besides miss less? That's always going to be the number one answer. But I still also apply that same diagnostic of my winning matches. How could I have won better? And try to, like you said, take the, what was the word that you used? The observable, or
the detached observations.
The detached observations, because I know when I finally get a table back here in my house, those are the things that I'm going to be working on to see, one, can I win better the next time if I happen to face off against those opponents again? And then two, could I put up a better fight against the opponents that I lost against? Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Can we take a look at some of these comments?
Sure.
I'm going to scroll. Look at me. I'm working the mouse. I just grabbed it from them.
If you want, click this button here, and that'll queue up one of the questions that I saw earlier.
Okay, real quick. I saw something where, so Lester mentioned something about Ralph Eckert. Oh, here we go. Ralph Eckert. Oh, look at that. Talks about the shot after, as in the shot after a really good shot, you tend to hurry and lose focus. For sure. So there's different levels of understanding that you need to keep focused. What's helped me, and I just wrote about this in a YouTube comment. I have a channel for my podcast. If you want to check it out, look up MN Pool Bootcamp on YouTube. But this is really interesting. I'll make this real short. Climbers, the most amazing fact I know is that the majority of rock climbing deaths occur on the descent, meaning people walking down the trail to their car, or climbing down, or walking down, or just getting back down after they've already done the climb. And I was so shocked by this, but apparently it's like 60% of deaths. And the reason why is that when people are climbing, they are fresh physically, they are focused. And because they know that their sense of danger is very high, they're looking down at big drops, they understand the danger. So they're aware of the danger. As a result, they're hyper-focused, they're very fresh, and they're full of adrenaline. And everything they do is life and death, and they work really hard. And then they get to the top of the climb. And as soon as they get to the top of the climb and look at, I did it, all the adrenaline drains out of their body. And they are now in an adrenaline dump. They are physically exhausted. They've been exerting themselves at a high level. So physically drained, the adrenaline drains, and then their focus, they become very complacent and very secure. And they go from a laser edge to a cloudy haze. And so now they're just in this, they feel safe. And so now they're just this happy, cloudy, distracted mindset, thinking about their climb and what they're going to do later. And they're tired and distracted and complacent and foggy. And then they strap a 50-pound backpack of climbing gear on their back and start trudging down a rocky trail next to the edge of a cliff. And bad things happen. And it's shocking that that's where the accidents happen. But the reason I tell you guys that story is that it's one thing to tell somebody to stay focused. But if you understand that tendency, then what I do is usually when I make a hard shot that solves the rack, or I'm like, ta, I take a deep breath and I'm like, yay, I made it to the top of the mountain. Let's see if I can hike to my car. And by understanding how big that danger is, has helped me complete quite a few racks better. And so that said, everybody makes that mistake. And yesterday I fell off a cliff. So there you go. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I also want to shout out, every time Tony Robles joins the stream and says hi, I get starstruck every time. So hey, Tony.
As do I.
How come we've never gotten together? We should get together at Chris's at the same time. That would be fun. Really fun.
That would actually be a whole lot of fun. We might be able to maybe pull that off.
Maybe we're the same person. You've never seen us together.
All right, so before we go to the Q&A, we're coming up on 45 minutes, so I don't want to run this too terribly long. I'd like to ask, and I will answer myself. Now that we've done the Texas Open and we've talked about the detached observations and everything else, what would you say would be next for you after, like, what are your detached observations and what would be next?
I was going to make a really dark joke involving ending myself because of my performance and what no. It's that's the thought that doesn't help me. I don't have to go down that road. No, what is next for me is very, 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 very motivating. So I would say that I don't know that I learned anything I didn't know, but there's different levels of knowing it. So for example, I've always, if you'd asked me 20 years ago if I knew how important the break was, I would have been like, oh yeah, the break's an important shot. But as you get better and better at pool, the break becomes more and more important. I mean, two beginners playing, the break really doesn't matter because nobody's going to run the table. On the other hand, if nobody's ever missing, then the break is decisive. So if you look at, like, an easy way to say this is picture a pie chart of which skills are going to get rewarded in terms of who's going to win and lose the match. So if you take two beginners, the break shot is not even on the pie chart as far as, like, if you had Shane Van Boning, the best breaker in the world, break for one player, and they were both brand new beginners, the person that Shane broke for would not really have any kind of an edge. It would not make a factor. It would not be a factor in winning and losing that match. But if two really strong players played and Shane could break for one of them, that could be a decisive edge. So as the level of skill improves, then those other skills like shot making and defense and mental game and all these other skills, as those people get really, really good at all those other areas, those skills mean less and the break means more and more. So just when you think you understand how important the break is, your understanding of how important it is can get more and more and more. And it's not either you know it or you don't. It's an escalating awareness of just how important it is. So I don't think I learned anything I didn't already know, but I would say I learned it to a priority level and an importance that I didn't have coming into this tournament. Certain things now are even more clear how critical they are, which is incredibly motivating and exciting because that makes me want to put even more into those areas, because basically it's just like, it's almost like the pool gods were told me, you aren't giving enough in these areas. It has to change. And it's like, okay, all right, I got the message. It was loud and clear. So
I like the way you ended that one there, where you aren't putting enough emphasis in these areas, because that was pretty much my takeaway from it as well. When I look at certain shots that I would attempt to make, to where either I make the shot but I don't get the good enough position on the next shot, and yes, I have a next shot available, but then since it's not as good as it could be, I end up fumbling at that point. So I know that I still have to not only pocket balls, but I have to be able to transition to the next shot a little bit better. And then some of my safeties faltered a little bit, and then some of my just decision makings faltered a little bit. Those that have been following me long enough know that here in my new home, I currently don't have a table, which is why I'm just basically excited about getting my new table, because the stuff that I took away from this event is stuff that I want to be able to put directly onto the table and put in the reps, put in the hours, which is going to be content that I'll be able to create the moment my table gets here, and of course the moment I heal from my surgery. If no one knows what I'm talking about, just check out my last live stream where I talk about I have a upcoming ankle surgery coming up here in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to be out of commission again for about 3 months, by which I'm going to be able to at least go live every once in a while and still review some old matches that I have. So, okay. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and try to just answer a couple of questions that I have queued up. And as we're going through these questions, if you want more questions answered, start typing them in, because the moment we reach the bottom, if nothing's really coming in, we'll pretty much just go ahead and call it a night.
Get some dinner.
Yeah, and
lick our wounds a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly, and get some dinner. So let's start with the first question that I saw that I highlighted. And this is going to be from Felix. Says, do you know any drills on learning how hard to hit the ball and position? I'll let you answer first.
Yes. So thank you, Felix. Looking for drills and looking for things to practice, and your sense of curiosity and wanting to get on some beneficial roads is impressive. I think any good drill, almost any good drill, like the only drills that don't work on speed and cue ball are shot making drills where all you're doing is all in to pocket the ball. And there's a time and place for that. Like there's a time and place where you can just set up a difficult shot and just try making that shot. Of course, that's shot making practice for if a certain shot. But beyond that, almost every drill you do should be working on some type of cue ball positioning as well, in which case you're going to be working on speed and direction. So what drill is best for you? There's, of course, the right answer is where you're at with your pool game and what skills you need. But I'll just throw, if I had to throw one out there just randomly, there's so many, but the box drill,
the box drill is a great starting point. The way this works, I can't. There's 4 balls on the table, a diamond out diagonally from the corner. So 4 balls, each one is 1 diamond diagonally out from the corner. You start with a cue ball in the middle of the table, and you just run all 4 balls, any ball in the nearest corner. And each time you have to get the cue ball back to the middle of the table. And there's a box that's 2 diamonds wide. So if you go to the middle of the table, 1 diamond over, it's 2 diamonds wide, 2 diamonds wide. That's your target. And you have to make each of the 4 shots and get back to the middle. That is a good drill for strong beginners, low-level intermediates, because you learn if you can use a rolling cue ball to get back to the middle of the table, or if you need little bits of inside or outside English. And also, you learn the right speed to use, because speed changes depending on your thickness of the ball. And as you start hitting the ball thicker, the object ball is going to take your speed, and you'll find out people tend to come up short. And when they're cutting that ball a little thinner, they tend to the thing takes off. So it helps with speed awareness, and also even the part of the pocket they catch. They make the ball, but it caught thick in the pocket, and then they come up short of the box. So if I had to just pick one drill, look up the box drill, see if you could find it or try that, or email me info@mnpoolbootcamp.com, and I can get you the box drill. But that's if I had to pick one randomly out of a hat. But all good drills should do that.
I'm actually happy that you mentioned the box drill. I've never actually heard it called the box drill. I've just heard it center table drill, basically, because I have a video of that on my channel.
There you go.
Where you can actually see that demonstrated. I will link it in the stream after I cut the stream off, to where you can see that demonstrated. I'm just going to echo what Demetrius was talking about, because generally speaking, when we talk about practicing, there's a huge difference in throwing the balls out and trying to run whatever pattern that you have. Yes, in a nutshell, you are practicing, but I think the part that a lot of people seem to not understand is to run out whatever pattern that just randomly scattered onto the table is most likely going to require a multitude of skills. Draw shots, follow shots. You might end up banking a ball. Heck, you might even accidentally have to jump a ball or whatever. You're going to unleash all these different skills in order to be able to clear the pattern. And if you happen to clear the pattern, great. But you never really took one of those skills and actually tried to harness it and allow it to be better. And that's what I define practicing. And so when he's talking about drills, you have to also, I think there's a distinction between a pattern drill, because again, you're going to just unleash a multitude of skills in order to get through it, versus a drill that takes 1 or 2 specific skills and just do it over and over and over and over. Like drawing a straight in shot, drawing the cue ball 1 foot away, or drawing the cue ball 1 foot back from the object ball, drilling that over and over again, because it's going to be different if you have to draw the cue ball 2 feet away from the object ball or 3 feet away. And you're not going to know how to do that or what it feels like or be able to get the muscle memory down unless you just do it over and over and over again. And that's my distinction that I have between drilling. So you can pick anything, but I would just caution you to not fall into the trap of, well, let me just break and run a rack of 9 ball, or, because it's not the same thing. It's practicing to where you're at least trying to take all the skills and put them all together. But I would highly encourage that you pick a drill or design a drill, if you will, to where you're just really taking a single or 2 skills. I would encourage 1 skill at a time, but 1 or 2 skills where that's all you're doing throughout the entire drill. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I agree. I think that what's interesting to think about is, I think that drills become more and more important as you get better. So if you had a beginner that had only played pool 5 times, they don't need to drill, because every single shot they shoot is a tester, and they're working on different skills and different things. Now, if they get a lesson, maybe that's a little mini drill in one specific skill or area, and they might have to put in a little burst of focused learning to learn how to bridge over a ball or something. But for the most part, they're just going to play, because every skill has a learning curve. And in the beginning, they need to grow on all these different areas. So whatever random shots they're shooting, they're learning. But if you get to Chris's level, whatever, then all of a sudden, if you're just shooting open racks, 95% of the shots you're shooting aren't shots that you really need more practice on. You've already gotten those developed. So then
what happens is instead of 100% of your time at the table is being productive, as you get better and better, less and less of just running balls out is productive because more of it's just review. And so now those skills that are the ones that, banking or shooting over balls or, drawing or breaking or different skills are not getting, you're spending all this time just shooting open balls in that's maybe not helping you develop that you could be spent. So I think as you get better and better at running open balls, then it becomes more and more important to pick some drills to work on. But if you're still a beginner or still learning every time you pick up the cue, then I think the drills don't mean as much in the beginning as they do towards the end.
That I can agree with. So Felix, thanks for that question. I hope that helps you out. Let's see. Next question queued up. This is from Dirk Ridley. He says, "Hi guys, I'm nearing retirement age and would like to prepare for a boot camp. Potential client. Currently practice 1 hour a day, target drills and some rotation, 8 ball to the break judgery. How to prepare? Let's go with the aspect he's asking. How do you prepare for the?
He also said this. He's been playing for 12 years. He's 65. He's addicted to improving. But when do you know if your best days are behind you? That's kind of how I think about it. Like, when do you know, and I'm 45, so I'm not 65, but I also have, played pretty well. And sometimes I even wonder, Efren's best days are behind him, or Earl's, Johnny Archer's best days are behind him. And so the point is that there comes a point when you have to wonder. And so a couple thoughts on this is, first of all, there's an assumption that's being made that if you can't improve your Fargo and your overall performance, that there's no point, or that there's no reason to try. And that's assuming that improvement in performance is the only reason to play. Now, of course, that means a lot to me, and that's a big deal to me. But even people whose game is declining in much older age at 65, I don't consider, but the point is that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy learning new things with it. And even if you can't run as many balls as you did when you're 40, you can still learn a few maneuvers or a few solutions to some tools that are elegant and a new understanding that you didn't have before, and that's enjoyable and sophisticated and rewarding. So first of all, I don't really know that the only reason to play is to continue to improve. You can continue to develop, and then your performance do what it do. But the other part is that I always, my best answer as far as are my best days behind me or not, I could say yes and try to talk myself into something which I don't know for sure if my best days are behind. I don't know. I could try to bluff and be like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna get. I could say no, my best days are behind me. I give up. Or what I've learned to say is, and like it's the same question of how far am I going to get with pool? How much better can I get? How far can I get? What do I think I can achieve? My answer has always been the same, which is, ask me when I'm so old, when I'm 88 and I can't hold a pool cue, then ask me, and I'll look back and I'll say, I guess that's how far I could get because I gave it my all. And so my approach is I give it absolutely my all, and only in retrospect will I be able to tell you how far I got. My goal is not to worry about how far I can get. My goal is to give it my all to the point that when I do look back, I can say, I guess that was my best because I gave my best. So that's my answer to that. And then how to prepare for a boot camp. You definitely want to get a message to me, info@mnpoolbootcamp.com, because we would want to connect, and I'd want to get a little bit more feel, so that I depending on how somebody plays and what they want to do, it's all custom. Everything I do is custom. There's no syllabus and lessons. Like, trust me, I just watch and then plan and coordinate with you, collaborate.
All right, cool. Let's see. Next question. This comes from Poolside Chat with Todd. It says, tell me more about the mental class. So not really a question, more of a statement.
Yeah, well, it's more of a command. What do you think I am? Like you're just like a puppet, like, oh, can you see the strings? Okay. Anyway, no, thank you. I feel like there's a lot of stuff I can do for my students. But when it's all said and done, I feel that my mental game training will be the best thing I've done for my fellow humans. And so I'm a big believer. I think it can be not just game changing, but even life changing. And it's stuff that I didn't figure out on my own. It's stuff that, it took a lot of years of mentoring, studying, and experience mixed together. And I think what I do well is I think that I have a very, I mean, you guys have been listening to me. I have a very high level of competence when it comes to communicating. And when it comes to mental game, especially, if you're talking to the wrong person, it can just sound like gobbledygook cliches. But when you're talking to the right person, they can hit the right things the right way, it can make a huge difference. And I believe that I'm not the only guy, but I believe I can do that. So I have a sessions where I do 3-person sessions, and we do Zoom meetings, and basically we just do 3 Zoom meetings together in little groups, and everybody shows up with a little list of some of the things that they feel they struggle with mental game, and some of the, whether it's just at the table during a match or more globally, like beliefs about themselves. And then I have some stuff that I like to share about the mental game. And as I share my approach to mental game, then I can also show how that manages and tackles the issues that people brought to the table. And I've done this with I've probably run 6 sessions. I do about 3 to 4 a year. And I've probably run 6 over the last couple of years. And it's really special to me. So check me out. It's on my, it's mnpoolbootcamp.com/something. It's just go to the menu and you'll see mental game.
All right, cool. In my opinion, I would have to say maybe a really good sneak peek at what he's talking about is what you heard him mention before about the competitor cycle. Because when I heard the competitor cycle before we mentioned it in a live stream, it completely changed my perspective of how I look at myself and how I look at the table. Because when we were at my old house and he was giving me the competitor cycle to my face, I just sat there and I thought I was staring at a mirror, because everything he was saying was everything that I was experiencing throughout my pool career. And it just pretty much just a switch went off in my head, and the game has been better for me. Meaning that I'm just not as emotional when I'm having my struggles, because I'm able to do the detached observations better and know how to try to approach my progress in a more productive manner. So if you want a sneak peek at what he's talking about, watch the competitor cycle video, and I think you'll get a good idea of it.
Thank you. Yeah, he says dance down. That's funny.
Matthew, you're wanting to know, is the Texas Open Invitational? It is not. The Texas
Open. I would not have been playing if it was Invitational.
Exactly. It is an open tournament. The problem is that this was the 51st year of the tournament. This is the longest running tournament in the United States, I believe. Wow. And it fills up quickly. If you don't follow Skinny Bob's Billiards Facebook page, their social media stuff, the day they open the registration, it pretty much closes almost 24 hours, within 24 hours, maybe sometimes 48 hours. And the moment it closes, you're now sitting on a waiting list, and that waiting list gets gigantic. Yeah, on top of that, you
can't make travel plans to come down here if you don't know if you're going to get in, and you probably won't. So yeah, this has been a general trend where popular tournaments are filling up ridiculously quick. The U.S. Open this year, I didn't get to go this year. It was the first year where they didn't actually allow anybody to sign up, because the past few years, the demand has been so high, it's been filling in an hour. And so this year they actually shut down registration and said you have to be invited or win a qualifier. And I didn't get in. And I think that they might start, there's either they need to do that with more tournaments or they need more tournaments. But right now, due to its popularity, yeah, this Texas Open is no easy thing to get in.
Yeah, so Matthew, if you think you might be interested, all I can say is follow Skinny Bob's Billiards Facebook page and just stay tuned for next year. It always happens on Labor Day weekend, and if memory serves correctly, the invitation typically opens up around June or July, and like I said, it will fill up like that if you're not paying attention. So I'm usually watching their Facebook page around that time frame, and the moment I see registration is opened up, and a lot of my friends are sharing that registration is opened up, I immediately go ahead and register. I'm usually between 128 players, I'm usually somewhere between the 20th or 30th person that is registered the moment I see that registration is opened up.
I'll give you a cheat code too. This is what I did, because I wanted to make sure I got in. I messaged the Facebook page for Skinny Bobs. I'm like, hey, I know registration is going to open, but I didn't know when. I want to make sure I get my entry in time, blah, blah, blah. And I actually had like a little message exchange. And then as soon as Reg opened, he was like, hey, FYI, Reg opened. I'm like, perfect, here's my money. And it was like, that was when it's like, I'd already like, not pre-registered, but like we already had the ball rolling to where I was getting in, you know. But anyway, as long as you're paying attention, you should be fine.
There you go. Okay, let's see here. Trevor Simpson, do you have any general thoughts on alignment issues, especially consistency for somehow or maybe someone who is widely cross-eye dominant, i.e. right-handed but very left-eye dominant? Both of us are right-handed players and left-eye dominant, so you go ahead and start the show on that one.
So this is actually a pain point because I am right-handed, I'm left-eye dominant, and the pain point is that it used to be that my cue was just slightly to the left, like here, and now it's crept over more and more. And what's happened is instead of my cue being straight, or my face being straight, like all of a sudden, like my head's been tilting like 3 years ago. This has changed a number of things. It was just a change in how I wanted to see the balls or change in diamond. It's like it just, how the balls looked to go in changed. And as that changed, my arm position changed, my bridge changed, and my grip all had to like adjust, and my stance. So like there was like all these things are connected. And when I coach, I'm not super hung up on, there's a lot of fun. I'm not the fundamental guru. Don't need to get into that. But the point is, there's all these things are connected. And as your eye dominance changed and clearance on the shot and getting my body in the way, especially when I have to elevate, there's so many little things that changed. It caused a lot of pain. And to this day, that's one of the things I'm really struggling with. So I don't have answers. What I can say is I find it very challenging. When I was a kid, I just right down the middle, didn't even think about it. And I'm not a kid. And so all I can say is, I don't think there's easy answers. So I think it's, from my experience, it's just taken a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of experimenting with what finally feels right. And if there's one tip I could give you, it's this. When you're having your good days, when everything feels good, even if it's just 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 30 days, on your best day, when everything finally feels right, try to see what you're doing those days and build around duplicating that as best you can. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just find what's working when it's feeling your best and try to pay attention to that and then see if you can do that more.
All right, cool. I think this is the same Matthew from before. It says, you're struggling with the same eye pattern with shooting. Do you have a certain routine every time you shoot? I will attempt to answer this one. And that is simply that when you have your pre-shot routine, consistency I think is supposed to be the most important thing. I mean, this is a bit facetious, but if you happen to do a backflip before every shot, then you better make sure that on every shot that you're just doing a backflip. You want to make sure that the simplest answer I always try to give is it doesn't matter how hard or how easy the shot is, because I think we've all experienced that when a shot is easy, sometimes your pre-shot routine kind of goes out the window because it's like, oh, it's a pocket hanger. I'm just going to be able to just, shoot it in. Haha, everything's going to go right. And I think with that mentality, we've all experienced that when we took that shot for granted, something does go wrong. Maybe you didn't get the position that you wanted. Maybe the cue ball followed the object ball in afterwards. So simply put, an easy shot is a hard shot and a hard shot is a harder shot, meaning that everything in between should all be treated equally, as far as I'm concerned. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, the importance of a routine and rhythms are very important. I feel like a good pre-shot routine should be a waltz and a rhythm as opposed to a set of instructions that's uncomfortable and forced. But sometimes you have to learn those things and build it into a dance. I think he asked about eye patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when I'm training on it, I don't think about it when I play. I just don't care. When I play, I don't care. But when I practice my eye patterns, I call it bookends, meaning that you could have three things. You could have your eyes on the object ball, you could have your eyes on the cue ball, or you could be going back and forth. And so what I generally do is, the most important part is when you're standing up, from the time you're standing to the time you're in stance, when your body is dropping onto the ball, you should be looking at the contact point on the object ball. So you can look at the object ball, and then the whole way down, you stare at the contact point on the object ball, and that is what keeps you coming down to the right line. That's the first part. Once you're down, then you can take your practice strokes, and during your practice strokes, your eyes can flicker back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Cue ball tip, object ball, cue ball, object ball. Then, once that's set and you're ready to shoot, you stop moving your eyes around and you lock back on the object ball again, and you stare at that object ball all the way through your swing. So the reason I call it bookends is because you start with the object ball, get into stance, then it goes back and forth during your practice, but then you end with the object ball during your swing. That's how I feel optimal eye patterns should be. Now, I don't really care. As long as the one part I care about is dropping down and staring at the object ball. After that, I've seen top players that when they shoot, they're staring at the object ball, and then on their backswing, their eyes flicker back to the cue ball, and then they glance back up as they swing. I've seen their eyes go back, because generally a lot of people go back and forth during their practice swings. I've seen them go back and forth during their final swing. Well, these guys are perfect, like top players. So I don't know that it has to be that militant, but I do think staring at the object ball when you drop in a stance is important.
See, so I have a slightly different answer because I'm a cue ball guy last, and mainly that I'm looking at the cue ball last.
When you shoot, you're not looking at the object ball?
No, I'm looking at the cue ball because I've done everything. Wow. I've done everything up to the point that you're talking about, to where while
how did I not know that?
While I'm standing behind the cue ball, lining up my shot and visualizing the cue ball to the object ball, kind of thing, and making sure that the majority of my aiming is done from up there, because then when I'm coming down on the shot, just like you described, and then I'm doing my toggling back and forth, and as long as I know everything is, as long as I'm in the mindset of everything looks lined up to me, I'm ready to fire. Now, the most important thing for me is, does my tip hit the cue ball where I want to hit the cue ball? Bottom left, bottom right, top left, top right. And for me, I want to make sure that I have the assurance that I strike the cue ball where I intend to. And so the only justification I have for that is I have to be looking at it. And but like you said, the moment I strike the cue ball, then my eyes will start to come up and then observe as I'm going to the object ball.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So you're kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Let's see here. Goba44, great stream. Thank you so much. The life of a pool player is often hours of lonely practice and frustration, often while league players are having fun around you in the hall. Any words of encouragement? Simply put, do you want to be better than those that are having fun? Because I think that's got to be the mindset, to where there's having fun, which you're supposed to have fun. I think the hard part about not having fun, though, is when you're struggling. And I think it's maybe oxymoronish or paradoxical to say that struggling should be fun as well, because you're going to struggle at any point in time. Where those that are just there, I think, that are just having fun, that's what they're meant to do. They're not going to have a concept of struggling, because they're just there to have fun and don't care. They don't care if they miss cue. They're probably laughing when the cue ball flies off the table, where you're being more frustrated. And
you can almost say that there could be a bunch of guys drinking beer outside on a picnic that are having fun, and they're not struggling at all. So it's like there's, the people next to you having a good time. They're playing such a different game. They might as well not, they're not even on. You're on a different path. That's a hard path that they're not on. So anyway, I just wanted to point out, not only are there people having fun next to you, there's people that aren't even struggling with pool at all that are having a blast.
So, I mean, simply put, you know what your goals are, and that's what's going to matter. And even though you might not be having fun now, like the people that are around you, but as long as you stick with it, it's going to be fun.
And I have a little different answer, because the only thing about that is that makes it sound like we should be unhappy all the time with this idea of some future payoff where we're suddenly skilled and have a bunch of great results, and that's going to make it worth it. That's true. Okay. It's going to be satisfying when we get there. But here's what works for me. I talked about this with Chris last night. I said, if I do this thing I call the magic wand test. So if I'm practicing with a certain skill, say I'm practicing my jump shots, and I'm just terrible no matter how much I practice, and it's been years and I just can't get any better. There's part of you that's like, man, I just wish I could do this. I just wish I could do this. And and then in that mindset, you're so frustrated that you can't. You're like, man, I just wish this was over. This fight was over. And so I play this game. I say to myself, if somebody gave me a magic wand and said, if I wave this magical wand, I'd suddenly be able to jump the balls like I wanted to jump the balls. Would I even wave it? And I thought about it, I'm like, well, at first you're like, well, of course I want to get better. But then you're like, wait a minute. If I just wave that wand and I could suddenly just jump all these balls in. And if I could wave this wand and suddenly just be perfect and win everything, I would be empty. That would be empty. It would be a meaningless thing. And it would deprive me of the journey and the challenge. And that's it. So by playing, the problem is we don't have a magic wand. So we oftentimes act and believe as if only we could just have this over with. But if you play the magic game, the wand game, and ask yourself, if I could really just have this challenge over and be the player I wanted to be, it would be empty, and it would end your journey and take away your right to this journey. And once I realized I wouldn't wave that wand if you gave it to me. I want this fight. And even though I lose that perspective, and sometimes I wish it was over, but then I'm like, no, I wouldn't wave the wand if you gave it to me. That's a reminder that you should be enjoying the challenge of the game. That's why we challenge ourselves. And it's easy to lose that perspective. And a great movie, if you haven't seen Click by Adam Sandler, this is a great movie where basically the guy starts fast forwarding unhappy parts of his life with a universal remote. And he starts fast forwarding parts of his life. Like, I could fast forward through this work meeting, and I can fast forward being sick, and I can fast forward this my kids in the back seat on this trip screaming. And basically, the next thing he knows, he's dying of old age of a heart attack because he fast forwarded his whole life. And all of a sudden, it hits you that the stuff that we don't like at the time, that is life. And so when you're playing pool, yeah, there's going to be some high water marks where something comes together. But don't you dare lose perspective. The fight is why we play, and you wouldn't skip it even if you could. That's what I would say.
And that's the focus on the process, not the results.
And just be grateful that we have a fight we could fight.
Yeah, I love it. Couple more questions to go here. This one comes from Raw. I've been seeing some of your chats that you've been going on. You're pretty much asking about equipment. And unless I'm mistaken, there is no hard, fast answer when it comes to equipment. Here you're asking about because you currently use a Kamui Athlete hard tip and you're having a hard time doing something with it. The short answer is going to be you might be able to figure out what you need to do with that tip. You might change tips and you might take a step back and be a ball or two worse until you figure out how to use that tip. Unless I'm mistaken, there's no hard and fast answer when it comes to equipment. It's all personal preference. And that's really all I know how to say about that.
Yeah, there's probably some Walmart cue that you could get where it might affect your performance. But I think equipment is the most, I respect. Now, there's cue manufacturers that really craft beautiful things that are really into that. That's fine for them. I'm just not. Like, for me, it's all about performance. And anything that you buy from a mainstream cue manufacturer these days, whether it's cue, tip, whatever, is totally sufficient. It has no impact. It might feel a little different, and maybe some people prefer something, that's fine, but it's not going to affect performance. And a great story, the only time in my life I ever doubted that, I had my tip was going weird. It was like a little wonky at the end, and it wasn't holding chalk, and it was a weird shape, and something was wrong with the tip, and I was trying to draw it. I miscued a couple of times, and I was like, man. And I mentioned to my buddy I was playing pool with, or we were practicing, I said, I think my tip is breaking down. I don't think this is working. He's like, let me see. And he grabs it and he starts just ripping the cue ball, table length draw shot after table length draw shot, and hands it back to me. He's like, I don't know, it hits okay. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I'm a little tentative on my draws. Maybe I'm a little timid right now. So obviously it wasn't the cue. So any idea that this tip could be impacting your performance, like, let me try it. Let me try that cue. I bet you I could make it do something. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, find equipment and find the configuration of equipment that you're going to want and enjoy. The shaft diameter, the tip, the designs that are in the butt. It's your cue, but you're going to be the one that's responsible for finding the configuration that you can actually enjoy, and just really dismiss that if there's a better player or any other player can probably look at your configuration and go, that's garbage. And there's another player that can look at it as like, this is a great configuration. It's just going to be personal preference. Demetrius shoots with the Predator cue. I shoot with the JFlower cue. Look at all your other top pros. Q-Tech is out there. there's no right configuration as far as I'm concerned, because if there was, we'd all be using it. And that just doesn't appear to be the case. All right, so I think this is the final question that I have queued up because I haven't seen any new ones come in. And this is from Felix again. And he's saying he's struggling with how hard to hit the cue ball in positioning. And I think that is kind of also was in the first question that he asked. And so one answer that I can try to give basically goes to what you and I talked about. If you want to get better at how hard you're supposed to hit the ball, there's no simple answer other than you got to put the reps in. But if you want to get something that's a little closer to home as far as the answer is concerned, try lagging your cue ball. Put the cue ball on the head string, shoot it towards the foot rail, and see how hard you have to hit the ball in order for the cue ball to stop in between the side pockets. That's not actually a lag. A lag is supposed to come all the way to the foot rail. But my point is, get your cue ball to stop at the side pockets. Once you're able to do that, now try to figure out how much harder do you have to hit the cue ball just for it to pass the side pockets by 1 diamond. And what you're going to realize is that physically, you're probably not going to feel a difference. It's going to feel almost identical as far as the hit. When you hear players talk about the feel of it, do it until it feels right. And it's not going to feel any different. However, if that cue ball rolls 1 diamond farther, then clearly you must have hit it harder. So there's no real answer to be able to judge how hard or how soft you're supposed to be able to do anything without going through the reps. But if you want like tangible evidence, that would be an exercise that I would recommend.
Yeah, it's so in terms of speed, what he just said is amazing. He also shared with me something that you were having someone do where you set up a shot where he was setting up a shot where the ball was exactly a diamond out from the corner diagonally. And he had a little bit of a cut, like a half ball hit cut, just cut in the corner. And the goal was to roll that ball in softly and let the cue ball stop on the rail. Like try to let it just stop as close to the rail as you can after pocketing that ball. So just trickle it in soft roll. And then shoot the same shot and try to get it to come 1 diamond off the rail. And then shoot the same shot and try to get it to come 2 diamonds off the rail. And just see how soft you have to hit that soft one and then how little difference it feels. And if you try to do that, so do the same thing he said. He's talking about a cue ball only version. You can do the same thing on a shot and then little by little develop a sense of speed and start watching where the cue ball goes.
Yep. Now,
when it comes to cue ball control is about altering the path of the cue ball using side spin and backspin. The natural path is a rolling ball. So you can use backspin and side spin to alter that path of the cue ball. But none of that is any good to you if you A, can't do it, or B, don't know why to use it or when to use it. So the first thing you have to start with is, what's the natural path of the cue ball? Speed and direction. And so what he's describing is setting up a shot, or the next level is to set up a shot, see where the cue ball goes, and work on shooting it with different speeds and watching where it goes naturally. Once you understand where it's going to go naturally, and you understand what tangent lines are, and you understand where they lead and how the cue ball rolls through the tangent line, different amounts depending on your cut angle, watch his videos, learn the stuff, and then see it in practice. And once you get that, then you can start getting into backspin, side spin, and really starting to play around with different stuff. But that's kind of the building blocks.
Okay. Y'all are fortunate because I saw a couple more come in and then we're pretty much going to end because we got to go get dinner before Demetrius takes off for the evening. I did see this question that I want to take on. This is from Ben H. Any advice on how to keep your elbow up after dropping it for 20 years? Locking the shoulder doesn't seem to help. I'm going to have to think that the simplest answer is shoot softer. I think the natural tendency of your elbow dropping is because you're probably hitting a little too hard. And so that means that the force that you're trying to put into your shot causes your shoulder rotation and causes your elbow to drop. I can almost guarantee that if you were to tap the cue ball, your elbow's not going to drop like at all, right? So that's where you heard us talk about with Felix's question about hitting shots softer and then a little bit harder and a little bit harder just to see how far that cue ball is going to roll. That would pretty much be the same answer that I would want to give you on that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and what's really, really cool is I was going to say something different, but it's on the same idea, which is when you have a problem, physical, thing like that, we don't do that for no reason. So it's always good to think about, instead of like, I don't want to do this, why am I doing this? And the answer is what Chris said, you're trying to add power to your swing. So then you can say, well, other players might not drop their elbow. So how are they getting power? So to me, there's a question that should be asked, which is, Chris says shoot softer. But what if you're shooting soft, but what if there's medium firm shots that come up in a game that are routine for everybody else? And the only way you can generate that speed is by dropping your elbow. Well, shooting softer, it's like, twice a rack, I need that speed. So then the question becomes, how are other people able to generate the power you want without the elbow drop? And the truth is that they're doing something different with their cue than you are. So what I suspect is that your timing is off and that you're not efficient with your cue stroke. So you're having to use a lot of power, but that power is not all going into the cue ball and you're losing half your power. Timing, I call it cue efficiency. What percentage of your cue motion goes into the cue ball? So if I took a running start and ran across the room and then just tapped the wall, well, I was charging, but all that energy didn't go into the wall. I have a suspicion that if we were on a table together, I could help you smooth out your timing. And when I work with players, I help them get all their cue speed into the cue ball. And as they do, then the need to move the body around is no longer there. So we got to go to the root of the problem, not the symptom.
All right, cool. And I think this is going to be our last question. I think this one's very interesting. This is from Damian Cluis. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Any tips to stop throttling my right hand? Sometimes it puts accidental English and can make me miss or get out of shape. So I think there's two ways I have to try to tackle this. One, if you're talking about throttling your hand, that means your hand is shaking. And I have to know whether or not is your hand shaking due to medical issues, because then that's just something you're just going to have to.
Is that what throttling means? I assumed that it meant that they were squeezing really hard, but no, you think it's shaking? Is that what they're talking about?
Maybe if you can clarify, Damien, as we're still doing the answering, because you're thinking about clinching.
I thought they meant clenching. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can add some clarification, we can still certainly answer both ways. But because if you are talking about your hand shaking from a medical condition, that's just something you have to work through.
Nick Varner played great.
Yeah, so
he was shake, perfect. Shake, perfect. But I don't know.
But if it's from nervousness or anything else, then the simplest tip I can give is just slow down. Like there's always got to be a foundational point to where you can do everything with 95%, 90, let's say 90% control. Like I think that's a good benchmark where everything you do is 90% within control. And then and that's as slow as you can possibly do, where everything is just as good as it's going to be. Because the moment you start adding speed, the moment you start adding power, that 90% starts to drop. And so in order to get, and if you're lacking somewhere between 60% control or whatever, I think the simplest way to get it back is to just dial it back. And here we go. We do have a clarification. It says twist out throttling like a motorcycle. So that's a fundamental flaw then, I would think, in the stroke, right? Where like again, you have the players that chicken wing or twist their wrist or.
Yeah. So we got to be careful without watching you play. Again, just remember that anything you're doing is to solve a problem. And so it could be that you're trying to hit too hard, or it could be that because your timing's not right and so you're doing other things. It could be that your stroke is off in some way and that your body has learned to do this to compensate. I like Chris's idea of there's some good diagnostic questions. So he asked like the other gentleman that was dropping his elbow. The question would be, well, does that happen on your soft shots? Because if not, then you can it's not something you're doing on every shot. It's only something you're doing on certain shots. And so then that can help you start to learn how to diagnose. And if it's happening due to power, again, I come back to timing as maybe when, your body thinks it needs to do something, it doesn't. If it's happening on every shot, then it's a needed thing, because what happens if you don't throttle the wrist? Do you miss on one side or another, or your cue goes off center? And if so, is there a way you can learn to stroke without doing that? And then finally, there's always this, and nobody's going to like it. There's always the possibility that you have a quirk in your game that you can just learn to love and build on and just do it the same and end up playing high level, because champions of all times have very strange styles at times. So there's a lot of, I don't have answers. I have questions. Does this happen on all shots? Is it what happens if you don't do that? Can you learn to play without doing that? Is it just correcting what happens some other way? Or can you build that into your game and just fall in love with it and fall in love with your own imperfections and be happy with your broken self, because we're all broken in some way.
I like that. I like that. And so since these last couple of questions have, where my answer has basically been, shoot softer, I do have a video that I published a few months back about the benefits of shooting softer, to where I addressed a lot of these issues about elbow dropping, curling of the wrist, or even picking up your cue off of your hand. And like I said, the simplest way I think to fix all of those is to shoot softer and then step it up and incrementally, hit harder when you need to hit harder, because there will be times that you need to hit harder. But in order to try to get rid of these, what we'll call bad habits that everybody's asking about, you break it all the way down to the point to where, well, how soft do I have to hit that cue ball to not do any of these things? Okay, I found it. Now, can we just incrementally get better? So yeah, I think that's pretty much going to wrap things up. We're going just a little bit over time than I would have wanted, and so I think this is perfect. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you haven't done so already, please give the stream a thumbs up. It really does help us out, so that way more people can see the stream after the fact. I'm actually not streaming on Facebook. That's why the Facebook counter below has been on 0. My streaming service has been having issues today, to where I couldn't stream on both Facebook and YouTube. Demi, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor one last time to plug all your stuff. And then all I can say is stay tuned until next time.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I want to thank everybody. I just want to take my last seconds and thank everybody. Sometimes I watch, like, I'm not an influencer, guys. Sometimes I watch influencers like Little Chris. And no, he's a hardworking man. But I watch some of these people, I'm like, who do these people think they are, that they're so special, that other people should just support their lifestyle because they're so special and they think they're so great? And it always kind of, like, I never liked that. It's some of the entitlement or some of the ego of the company. Anyway, now I'm in a weird spot with my life where I get to, for a living, share my skills and knowledge with people to help them on their journey, both on the table and off. And the fact that people are tuning in and listening to me, and the fact that people come to Minnesota, this gentleman here, shout out to Kevin from Sydney, Australia. He gave me the Penrith Panthers hat, which is their rugby team. I mean, and then I can, instead of going to some corporate sales job, which I used to have, tomorrow I get to go train for 3 days with somebody where I get to help them on their pool game. And it's very rewarding and it's very meaningful. And I don't feel like I deserve it. I don't feel entitled to it. I feel like it's been a big gift from all you people that come and train with me. So of course, I feel a sense of obligation that when I work with people, I feel like it is absolutely on me to deliver a very impactful change and to make it worth your while. And I'm not just training pool. I'm saying thank you with my effort, because I really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening and training with me and sharing this journey. So mnpoolbootcamp.com, MN for Minnesota. And if you have any questions, email me. That's what I like to do, is talk about pool. So,
all right, we're going to go ahead and cut things off for the night, or morning or afternoon, wherever you lovely people are in the world. So take care, everybody.